The United States Supreme Court is currently facing a renewed, albeit specialized, legal challenge to the landmark 2015 decision, Obergefell v. Hodges, which established a fundamental constitutional right to marriage nationwide. This precedent, decided under the 14th Amendment's guarantees of due process and equal protection, mandated that all states must license and recognize marriages between two people of the same sex. The immediate mechanism for the current discussion is an appeal arising from the case of Kim Davis, former county clerk in Kentucky, who refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples following the Obergefell ruling. Davis is appealing a lower court judgment that held her personally liable for damages to the couples she turned away. Her petition to the Supreme Court centers not only on the narrow question of her personal liability and whether her actions were protected by the First Amendment's Free Exercise Clause, but it also directly calls for the High Court to revisit and overturn the Obergefell precedent itself. The critical legal analysis hinges on distinguishing between the specific facts of Davis's case, a government official performing a public duty, and the broad constitutional right established by Obergefell. The lower court ruled that a government official, acting in their capacity as a state agent, cannot use private religious objections to ignore constitutional law. This specific finding makes the case factually narrow, but the explicit request to overturn the national precedent forces the Supreme Court to acknowledge the underlying political and social tension. Reasons for the challenge and potential consequences. The primary reason this issue has re-emerged almost a decade after Obergefell is the substantial shift in the Supreme Court's composition. The current 6-3 conservative majority has demonstrated a willingness to revisit and overturn long-standing precedents that they view as constitutionally unsound, most notably in the 2022 decision that eliminated the federal right to abortion. This environment has emboldened opponents of the 2015 marriage ruling to bring challenges forward. The core tension being tested is the balance between religious exercise and the enforcement of constitutional equality. Opponents argue that requiring individuals to participate in activities that violate their deeply held religious beliefs infringes upon their First Amendment rights. Proponents argue that constitutional rights are non-negotiable and that allowing a public servant to selectively apply the law based on personal faith undermines the rule of law and the principle of equality before the government. The consequences of the Supreme Court agreeing to hear the case are monumental, and the consequences of actually overturning Obergefell would be severe and immediate. Marital uncertainty. The legal status of hundreds of thousands of existing marriages could be instantly thrown into question, affecting property rights, joint tax filings, medical decision-making authority, and the legitimacy of parental status for children raised in these families. State-by-state chaos. The decision would not automatically ban marriage. Rather, it would revert the authority back to individual states. This would lead to a patchwork system where marriage rights would depend entirely on geography, creating legal and logistical chaos for families moving across state lines. Erosion of rights. Overturning a ruling that established a fundamental liberty would send a chilling signal regarding the security of other modern rights and precedents, contributing to a climate of legal instability. Prediction and solutions. The legal consensus suggests the likelihood of the Supreme Court agreeing to hear Davis's specific case is relatively low. The issues surrounding her liability for damages are fact-specific and lack the circuit split disagreement between federal appeals courts that often compels the Supreme Court to intervene. Furthermore, key justices have previously suggested that the marriage precedent differs from others because families and lives have been built around it, invoking a concept of reliance that counsels against disruption. However, the fact that the court is contemplating the appeal at all underscores the need for proactive measures. Prediction. The Supreme Court is likely to decline hearing the narrow Davis case, allowing the lower court's ruling against her to stand, while implicitly leaving the Obergefell precedent undisturbed for now. Solutions and path forward. The most robust solution lies in legislative action to safeguard marriage equality against potential judicial challenges. Congress has already taken a significant step by passing the Respect for Marriage Act, RMA. This federal law requires states to recognize any marriage legally performed in another state. However, the RMA is a safeguard against recognition issues, not a guarantee that states must perform all marriages. Therefore, the long-term solution involves state-level constitutional amendments. Advocacy groups continue to work on securing explicit constitutional protections for marriage in every state, removing the issue from reliance on a single Supreme Court precedent. Proactive legal planning. For couples, reviewing legal documents like wills, medical directives, and powers of attorney remains crucial to ensure that their legal relationship is recognized regardless of future court or legislative shifts. Judicial consistency. The judiciary, while addressing religious liberty concerns, must continue to apply the long-established principle that such claims cannot justify denying fundamental rights and equal services provided by the government.